Hey guys, good afternoon. I'm gonna do a quick video on an oil change for a 2016 Kia Forte. Some of the tools I'll be using are right here. I'm gonna need a socket wrench. I'm gonna need a 17 millimeter socket, 10 millimeter socket. That's a 27 millimeter socket, a torque wrench, funnel, some latex gloves. We'll be using 5W20 full synthetic and the proper oil filter. I think this 5-quart bottle cost me around 21 bucks. The oil filter was around 10. I had all the other stuff. So if you do the math, for around 30 bucks, you can do a oil change in about 20 minutes of your time. You'll be switching from conventional to full synthetic. I think right now over at tire shops, it's around 50 to 65 for a full synthetic oil change. So this is really easy. I'll show you how I do it, and let's get started. Okay, so climbing underneath here. As you can see, I've got the front wheels up on some Blue Rhino ramps. E-brake is engaged. The first step in the oil change is you have to remove these hex head screws. There's a bunch of them. And you have to take off this plastic cover to gain access to the oil pan and the oil filter. So I'll grab my socket wrench, 10 millimeter socket, get this removed, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we got the plastic cover removed, and this is what we're looking at. There's the oil filter there. There's the oil pan drain plug there. So I'll get my my drip pan, place it underneath the oil pan. I'll pull the plug using a 17 millimeter socket, and then we'll go ahead and get this oil drained. Okay, one thing you want to do before you pull the plug on the oil pan is go ahead and remove your oil fill cap. And also go ahead and unseat your dipstick. This will allow the oil to flow more quickly when draining. Okay, I'll try my best to film this here. Just going to slide our socket wrench over the drain plug. And we're just gonna break it loose. Yep. And then we'll use our finger to loosen up this plug and let it flow into the oil pan. There we go, like that. And we'll let that drain out for a few minutes, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so as you can see, everything's all drained out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put a new crush washer on the bolt. Just slide that on and take the old one off. If you have trouble getting the old one off, you can actually cut it off a pair of wire snips, but mine came off pretty easy. So we'll get that all set up, and now we'll go remove the oil filter. Okay, so there's where the oil filter is. You make a wrench. Just like this. And just wrap that around that lefty loosey, take it right out with the oil dropped into the pan. I can't really film this and do it, so I'll go off camera, take the oil filter off, and then show you how to put the new one on. All right, next thing you want to do is fill up the new oil filter about halfway with some of the new oil. A little bit more in there. And this is so that when the engine does start up, the oil filter isn't dry. It's got some oil already inside of it. Looks good there. Okay, so a couple things we're going to do here. We're going to take the new oil filter. We'll go ahead and attach it in the oil filter housing. I'll do it off camera so that I can utilize both of my hands, and then also after that we'll go ahead and insert the plug, tighten that down with the socket wrench, and then we'll go ahead and add our oil. Okay, one thing to note when you're putting the drain plug in, do this by hand first. That way you don't cross thread the bolt. I usually tighten that down by hand there. And I'll come back with the socket wrench. Tighten this down pretty tight, but not too tight, because I want to come back with a torque wrench and get that to specification. Okay, so came in with a torque wrench, went ahead and tightened that down. Specs say anywhere between 34 and 44 Newton meters. So we tightened this down to about 40 Newton meters. Okay, so here are the bolts for the plastic cover that goes on the bottom. Before I put that back, what I'm gonna do, just come in with some WD-40. Just hit these a little bit. This will make it a little bit easier. Next time I go to do an oil change, they'll come right off. Okay, so Kia calls for 4.23 US quarts. That's the oil capacity, the maximum. So we started with 5 for a little bit in the oil filter. We're about at, I don't know, 4.75 or so. So I just made a rough mark down here at the bottom. This indicates right about 4 US quarts. So we'll go ahead and add 4 quarts into the engine, and then we will back it off the ramps. Well, first we'll put that carrier, the cover on the bottom. We'll back it off the ramps, start it up, get the oil moving around, check the level, and then add if we need to. Very important that we don't overfill. So we'll put a little bit under and then add if we need to. Okay, I'm just gonna let the engine run for a few minutes, let the oil come up to temp. Then we'll shut it off and we'll let the oil rest for 5-10 minutes, and then we'll check the oil level and add if we need to. All right, been about 10 minutes, so we'll go ahead and pull the dipstick, take a peek, wipe it off, drop it back down, and then pull it out. And according to this, we are just below the F, which would indicate that it's right on point. Do it one more time. Yep, just below the F, so we're right at full. So what I'll do is I'll let this sit for another couple hours. Still a little warm, and I'll come back, check it when it's completely cold, and see what the level is at there. If we need to add a little bit of oil to it, we'll go ahead and do it at that point. Okay guys, I went ahead and checked the oil after about a half an hour or so, and it is nice and cool, and the level is just about perfect. So that'll wrap up this video. As you can see, it's pretty simple to do. Your own oil changes, saves a little bit of money, and get you out of the house for half an hour or so. I'll leave links to the description of some of the tools that I bought a little while back when I started doing my own oil changes. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the description below, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.